we've been sold this idea that like the way that web works now is like the only way to do it. Like massive data surveillance, get you addicted. There's a better path. It's just a harder path. We always say like, fix the money, fix the world. The money is just one piece of it. We got to fix the other things too. The dollar is in such a bad position that there's just no way out besides just inflation and irrelevance. People are going to look for an option that doesn't require trust. In a post-truth world, Bitcoin is truth. Like, it's the only thing that you know is real and tangible. But we need to accelerate. Time is of the essence. It's not an emergency, but sooner would be better. And so now you have a backup mic.
That's the Odell mic. Yeah, so we can't go wrong now.
I love it. So you think of me every time you record?
I just think of you every day, man.
There you go.
How you doing?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
Good. I don't know what we're going to talk about.
Good to have you
man.
back in Nashville.
It's good to be back in Nashville, your hometown. I like it here. We got a lot to do. Do you want to talk about Nostr or the Treasury companies first?
I don't know. You're the podcast host.
They're the two things you said you didn't want to talk about.
Well, now you're going to just get me in trouble for saying that.
Well, that was the plan.
Now we kind of have to talk about it. Is that really your top note? Is like,
this is Luke Roman's notes. I've not even got yours here.
does my show come out after Luke's?
Yeah.
It's like he's just going to crush me in the numbers.
Well, yeah, but you might go straight after him and he might give you a little bit of a boost.
That's good. Yeah, put me right after him.
Because everyone's kind of forgotten about you now. You're not on Twitter.
Yeah, that's the way it's supposed to be.
But you say you're not on
Wonderful.
Twitter.
I'm not on Twitter anymore. Yeah.
Yeah. Who runs 1031 account?
We have an intern that uses a LLM that's trained on my Twitter archive.
Do you still have that Twitter account?
I have the archive.
Do you know when you closed that down for like a week afterwards, I was desperately trying to get the Odell handle.
They still have it locked. You have to pay for it.
I would pay for that.
It's primo handle. I think they're charging like $100K for it or something.
Okay, I wouldn't pay that for it. Do you regret leaving Twitter?
It was definitely bad for business. The 1031 guys deserve a shout for being supportive when I deleted our greatest asset from a public messaging point of view.
But so now you're just trying to grow the 1031 account. But I don't know if it was even, like in hindsight, I get why you did it. I think it's kind of cool. Like money where your mouth is, move to Nostr. But would it have been better to have kept that and just push people to Nostr from there?
I mean, that's always the argument. I mean, once again, I think I think it's like, what is the goals, right? If the goals were boost 1031's outward exposure, so like from selfish goals, right? The move would have been, in hindsight, to just change that Twitter account to 1031 and just use that as the 1031 account, and it already would have 300,000 followers, right? Mm-hmm. And at this point, it probably would have like 500,000 followers. The good news is 1031's in a great spot without it. I think OpenSats is in a great spot without it. Bitcoin Park's in a great spot without it. I think Nostr's in a great spot without it. So those are my three projects plus, a protocol that I've been intimately focused with. And I think definitely if you look at it from just a straight commercial point of view, like I deleted an asset, mm-hmm. right? And financially questionable decision. I think if you think about it from a personal priorities point of view, it was like a massive success. And I really do not regret it. The worry I had is that I think we're all have an unhealthy relationship. Most of us, myself included, have an unhealthy relationship with our devices and the internet.
Yeah.
And my only social media was X and Twitter before it. And I had definitely had an unhealthy relationship with it. And no matter how much you try and ground yourself, the dopamine hits of just like the likes and the retweets is massive. Mm-hmm. And I think when I first started, I wasn't always a public, individual within Bitcoin. In the beginning, like I would use NIMS and I was like very private in it. And then it was after Trump won his first term that I became public. And I kind of just like stumbled into it. And the next thing you know, it's like a top 4 Twitter account in Bitcoin. And I stopped using it for 6 months and it just kept growing. It still was growing like super fast, just on all the old posts. And the whole time I was like, oh, well, you know, like I've already made these decisions. Like now I'm here. Like there's no going back. But then I just came to the conclusion. I was like, there actually is going back. Like I could just fucking delete the thing and I could just live my life and like not be a public figure. And in that way, I think it was a massive success. Like I think there's probably a whole slew of new listeners to your show that have no idea who I am. And that is just beautiful. Like I do not want to be a niche celebrity. I do not want to be a public face of Bitcoin. Like I want to like live a quiet life focused on trying to make freedom technologies more used at scale. And I think there's probably a place for influencers in that. But I don't think that's the most key aspect of it. I think the key aspect of it is actually like how the tools get built out and how they get distributed to people. So that they can actually make those decisions themselves and move forward.
It's funny. I was talking to Sessions yesterday, and he said he just had you on the show.
Yeah.
And he said there were a load of comments being like, "Who's this guy just saying Bitcoin catchphrases?" Like he's the guy that came up with them.
Yeah, they thought I was just like repeating "Stay humble, stack sats." Like I hadn't come up with it, but yeah, that to me that's a success, right? Yeah, it's always been something I wrestled with. It's something I still wrestle with the podcasts. And I know and now it's like public that you're a father, right? Because
you made it public.
Doxed it on your show.
In this room.
Which is a beautiful experience.
Yep.
And to me, like, it's like, okay, so like in when I'm raising my children, what is one of the number one things that we're going to have to wrestle with? And that's going to be healthy use of the internet, social media, and devices. Mm-hmm. And if I have to like look my kids in the eye and I'm like addicted to social media and I'm like an influencer or something, to me, it's like, it's a step away from OnlyFans. Like people like look at OnlyFans, like OnlyFans is horrible, but then they don't think of like someone that posts on TikTok every day or Twitter every day as the same thing, but it's very close.
Mm-hmm. It's funny, like I have been really conscious of trying to not use like my phone too much around my daughter. Like sometimes you have to. And like I don't let her watch, you know, an iPad or any of that stuff. We occasionally watch like a really old Disney movie because I think it's before all the dopamine hits of like new kids TV.
Yeah.
But even still, like she'll pick up my phone and she like holds it to her ear, and she is obviously just mirroring things you've done. So you set that example from such a young age. It's so hard to not be on your device around them. And I found myself getting like a bit addicted to Twitter again. Like I've always been quite good. Like I don't like social media. I don't like the way it makes me feel. I'd feel useless after scrolling for 20 minutes or whatever. Maybe I just need to delete it from my phone. Like I still need it for the show.
At the very least, you should just delete it from your phone and then just use it on your computer. It's like a very easy way to reduce the biggest problem is like there's a moment, there's like a quiet moment. And so what do? You just like reach for your phone and then before you know it, you're just doom scrolling.
It's an hour later.
Right. And so like, this is something I think about a lot, right? Like as we build out Primal and Nostr, is like, is there a better way? Like, because it's obviously clearly a useful tool, right? We wouldn't be friends. If most of my friends, I wouldn't be friends with if it wasn't for X.
Yeah.
Period.
But you can also trick yourself into thinking like it's for work, you know, because it is good for news. Yeah. But like, if I'm being honest with myself, most of the time I'm just doom scrolling through stupid videos and stuff.
Well, like, so for instance, like Kagi, which is like a privacy focused search engine, whose business model, instead of harvesting your data, is they just charge you for a subscription. They just released a news app like 4 days ago. And what they do is it's once a day. They give you all the relevant news and they run it through AI and give you nice condensed AI summaries of it.
That's kind of cool.
With no ads and no clickbait. And they're just using it as top of funnel for their other premium services. But my point is we've been sold this idea, and that like technology wise, like that's not a hard thing to do. There was just a will to do it and a business model that facilitated it. And we've been sold this idea that like the way that web works now is like the only way to do it. Like massive data surveillance, get you addicted, get all the dopamine rush, you know. monetize your attention to its fullest, monetize your data to the fullest. That's not the only way to do things. There's a better path. It's just a harder path. And so that's a much healthier way of, for example, this one app, right? It's just a healthier way to consume news. It's not based on addiction.
I'm smiling because I'm so paranoid that we're recording.
Are we recording?
Yeah, I've checked like 5 times.
We have that mic recording too, right?
Yeah, we're good.
Is the red over there mean we're recording?
No, that's something different, but we are recording.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I'm sure.
Anyway, that's just, so it's something I wrestle with. And it's like, even so we're seeing with like we had the Charlie Kirk assassination, right? Mm-hmm. And we see there's a push to add more controls to the internet because of this idea that youth are getting radicalized on the internet.
Yep.
And it's a very slippery slope, regulating the internet and regulating speech and regulating how people use these tools. And I just wholeheartedly disagree with it. I do not think that's the path. But the reason I bring it up is because there is a kernel of truth there. There are youth getting radicalized on the internet.
100%.
And then farther down that line, there are just people most people just have a very unhealthy relationship with it, particularly children, but even adults. And so as a society, this is something we have to grapple with. And as parents, this is something that we have to really grapple with if we want to raise our children right. And I personally want to be part of that solution, even if we might not be successful. Like, I think that's a worthy path.
This episode is brought to you by the massive legends Iron, the largest Nasdaq-listed Bitcoin miner using 100% renewable energy. Iron are not just powering the Bitcoin network, they're also providing cutting-edge computing resources for AI, all backed by renewable energy. We've been working with their founders, Dan and Will, for quite some time now and have been really impressed with their values, especially their commitment to local communities and sustainable computing power. So whether you're interested in mining Bitcoin or harnessing AI compute power, Iron is setting the standard. Visit iron.com to learn more, which is IREN.com. If you already self-custody your Bitcoin, you know the deal with hardware wallets. Complex setups, clumsy interfaces, and a seed phrase that can be lost, stolen, or forgotten. Well, Bitkey fixes that. Bitkey is a multi-sig hardware wallet built by the team behind Square and Cash App. It packs a cryptographic recovery system and built-in inheritance feature into an intuitive, easy-to-use wallet with no seed phrase to sweat over. It's simple, secure self-custody without the stress, and Time named Bitkey one of the best inventions of 2024. Get 20% off at bitkey.world when you use code WBD. That's bitkey.world and use code WBD. One of the things that keeps me up at night is the idea of a critical error with my Bitcoin cold storage. This is where AnchorWatch comes in. With AnchorWatch, your Bitcoin is insured with your own A+ rated Lloyd's of London insurance policy, and all Bitcoin is held in their time-locked multi-sig vaults. So you have the peace of mind knowing your Bitcoin is fully insured while not giving up custody. So whether you're worried about inheritance planning, wrench attacks, natural disasters, or just your own mistakes, you're fully protected by AnchorWatch. Rates for fully insured custody start as low as 0.55% and are available for individual and commercial customers located in the US. Speak to AnchorWatch today for a quote and for more details about your security options and coverage. Visit anchorwatch.com today. That is anchorwatch.com.
I think people are getting radicalized. Like, people are definitely getting radicalized on the internet.
Yeah.
But it's just because that's where they hang out. Like, if we still lived in meat space where people didn't have the internet, they'd just be getting radicalized somewhere else. We need to fix the issue of the radicalization, not control the internet. But like, we're seeing it in the UK with the digital ID and stuff.
It's really bad in the UK.
It's pretty scary. Like,
it's like the one place that's worse than Australia.
Australia's, well, there's problems with Australia, but it's nowhere near as bad as the UK. Not at the moment. But like, I've noticed even traveling, because in America, you have like, you can't go on porn sites in like certain states and all that sort of stuff.
A lot of them.
Yeah.
It's like 20 states or something.
And that's pretty new, right?
It's like the last year and a half.
And like, that is the same thing. I mean, it's more targeted, but it's the same thing as having like digital ID, just having to verify yourself online. But what I've noticed is especially since the UK have started talking about this, I've been trying to go to websites that are just blocked if you use a VPN. Mm-hmm. And so like,
because that's the next step.
Yeah.
Right. Because like, if you're in a state where you can't access something, you just use a VPN in another state. Mm-hmm. And so then they block VPNs to stop you from doing that.
So is the idea of like the free and open internet dead?
No, I think it's alive and well. I think we've been trending in the wrong direction for a while. And I think protocols like Nostr could be very helpful for that. I mean, if you look, you follow the incentives all the way down too, right? So X, for instance, their policy and their government and policy initiative is actually pushing for states like Texas to add, in their own words, to add age verification at the App Store level. So they don't want to deal with it, but they want their users to be age verified.
Mm-hmm.
And why is that? I think that's because then they're able to sell ads easier.
Yep.
Right? Like ad providers don't want to take advantage of children necessarily, right? They want to wipe their hands clean of it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think a lot of this just comes down to what is the core business models of these things. And if the core business model is data, we always hear the quote, like, data is the new oil.
Mm-hmm.
If that's the asset, if the asset's the data, then ultimately you're going to have a predatory relationship with your customers. You know, Gmail is on the surface a fantastic product, but the business model is literally harvesting all of your information and then selling it.
And training their AI.
There's no way that you'll ever be aligned with your users in that regard.
So it's actually, I just remembered, it was trying to go on YouTube yesterday. YouTube blocked me because I was running a VPN.
Yeah.
Like, it's pretty fucking crazy. But if Nostr's going to be the fix for this, do you not have to almost, like, at least in its iteration now with social media is really the only thing that's being used widely on Nostr. Do you not have
not even really, but yeah.
No, like in context, relatively. Do you not have to just make that as addictive as Twitter?
Well, so this is I mean, look, a lot of these are, I don't pretend to have the answers, right? And I also don't pretend that, like, I think at this point, Bitcoin has had the time in the market and the proof and network effect that it's going to be around for a long, long time. It'll probably outlive us all. I with high confidence think, which maybe sounds less crazy, even though this is like probably the 20th time I've said it on the show, and it gets less crazy every time I say it. Like, I still expect it to become the reserve currency of the world. Nostr is very much in its infancy. It might not be a protocol that is used in 10 years. But something like that, right? An open, verifiable, permissionless protocol for speech and identity is something we really, really need. Now, once you have that and you have Bitcoin, Bitcoin is effectively an open API for the world, right? Any developer can hook into Bitcoin and do payments around the world. You don't need a Stripe API. You don't need to get permission from them and get keys. You don't need to register with them and attach bank accounts and do all this other stuff. You can just plug right into this open API for the world. Something like Nostr becomes an open API for identity and speech and communications. And so this becomes, and particularly at a time in the internet when we're seeing these big tech platforms become more closed, right? It's harder than ever to use the X API. It's more expensive than ever. Reddit closes you off unless you use logins. Instagram, Facebook, all of them do now, except actually TikTok, and that's just because the CCP wants as many people on their website as possible. And that probably changes now that Oracle bought it, and we're going to see Oracle probably do a lot of the same things in the US that we see with the other big tech companies. So you have open API for speech and communication, you have open API for Bitcoin, and now you have vibe coding coming into it. Right now we're at Global Bitcoin Summit. It's the third year. We're doing it in partnership with HRF here in Bitcoin Park in Nashville. And we're going to have a vibe coding session right after this rip, right? And so when you think about that, there's a tool called Shakespeare that's being developed by Alex Gleason, who built Trump's Truth Social platform. And then I think he'll say it more kindly, but like Trump kind of fucked him out of Truth Social. And now he's building on Nostr. And he's building this tool called Shakespeare. And with Shakespeare, with a couple prompts, you can build any app that leverages both Bitcoin and Nostr. And it becomes really, really powerful. So this is a very long-winded way of me saying, yeah, you'll have predatory apps that are built on top of Nostr and Bitcoin. The difference is the user will be able to switch with very little switching costs. And my assumption, which could be wrong, is that users will use the better apps, right? Like if there's one video app that's Nostr and Bitcoin enabled that has ads and censorship, and then there's one that doesn't, how many users are going to use the ones with ads and censorship versus the one that doesn't? right? Like they probably the majority are going to use the one that has a healthier relationship with the user and gives them more agency.
100%. Like that's definitely true. But how do you go from sort of here to there? Because like network effects matter so much.
Yeah.
Like Nostr can already have, you know, a video hosting protocol that's better than YouTube in loads of ways. There's no ads, no censorship.
Yeah.
But you're still not going to get people over from YouTube right now. Like how do you do that?
Because YouTube has the users. I mean, even Rumble has had trouble. Look, I think it's two things. And look, first of all, I wear my Bitcoin hat with all this stuff because my adult life has just been focused on Bitcoin. So that's where my bias is. If Saifedean says all the time, like the biggest threat to Bitcoin is governments responsibly handling their money.
Yeah.
The thing is, like, governments are never going to responsibly handle their money. And so, like, the biggest threat to something like Nostr adoption is governments stop, you know, trying to censor and control platforms, and platforms stop trying to harvest as much data as possible and corral their users into these walled gardens. And I don't think either of those things are going to happen. So then the question becomes of timing as people move. But I also think the example I use a lot is something like Signal, which is not an open protocol, but it's an open, the apps are open source, and it's a private and secure messenger that is nonprofit that just receives donations. So the project is aligned with its users. And they have 100 million users, right?
Soon to be less when they have to leave the EU.
Right. WhatsApp has 5 billion users, right? I still think Signal's a success.
100%.
And the fact that users can choose not to use WhatsApp and can go use Signal is a success. So where am I going with this? I think in a world where, you know, people are using freedom alternatives of popular tools that leverage Nostr and Bitcoin, and it's 1%, 2% of the population, and that's an option to people, is a massive success. Now the question becomes, do we ever hit 50, 60, 70%? I don't know. I think the way you do that probably is build apps that are like in the middle ground that are just better apps. And if they're better apps, people will use them because they're better.
This is kind of like when we were talking last time on the show, and I guess I'd had like concerns around the way Bitcoin was trending in terms of the way people are actually going to use it, whether it's going to be freedom money or just this financial asset. And the thing you said then was that a small percentage of people will use it as freedom money.
Yeah.
And that's okay. Like as long as people still can, then it's kind of won. Maybe this is just the same thing. Maybe
it's the same thing. It's the same lens, at least. It's the same way I'm thinking about it.
So just before we recorded the show, we were talking to Obi.
Yeah.
And you said that you think Bitcoin will be the global reserve currency, but things like privacy will be used by...
I actually said that on the show in 2022.
There you go.
People can go back to the clips.
Have you got anything new to say?
No, not really. It's all been said.
But Obi said it's a scary world when Matt Odell says something like that.
Yeah.
Why do you think that's the case?
I think it's just reality. I think you have to set your expectations realistically. Otherwise, you're just going to be disappointed, right? When it comes to tools that enable personal responsibility, they rely on users to take personal responsibility. You can't force people to use a freedom-oriented tool by definition. So it's just the reality of the situation. You need people to actually move and improve their lives. So I think these things will take time. And I think probably in an ideal world, we see them push the mainstream alternatives into healthier relationships with their users, which probably then slows down the adoption of the freedom tools, but still benefits everyone else indirectly. And I think that's just what we've seen as these things play out, right? It's, I mean, the number that I like to point to is it's something like 300 billion emails are sent per day on the internet. 50% of them are Gmail. So like if you were at like an early email conference,
when everyone was running their own servers.
And you ask them like, is one giant American tech company going to be sending and receiving half of the emails per day? They would have been like, nah, no, definitely not. And then they would be disappointed. But if you set your expectations properly and you start chipping away at those kind of behemoths, I think then we're winning, right? And maybe it's a little bit of a perspective hack, but I think also it's a healthier way to approach the movement. Because I've gotten caught up in people love to hear like, oh, like everyone's going to use it, you know, it gets more clicks, it gets more retweets, whatever, but none of that shit matters. Let's be realistic about it. Let's be honest about it. and let's just move forward step by step. Every person you get is a win. I will say already now with something like Nostr, you don't need, we have maybe there's, I think they say there's 700 million users of X. TikTok's at like 1.5 billion or something. Facebook is 3 to 5 billion across their properties. And Nostr's like 200,000.
Is that number growing or shrinking?
I think it's growing. It's a little bit hard to measure in an open system. I think also like user numbers in general are like mostly lies.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's no way for us to verify how many Twitter X users there are. Period.
Yeah.
Like we're just trusting their numbers. Everyone who's ever done a live stream on X knows that the number that says how many people watch is a complete fucking lie, right? Like you know that for sure.
Yeah.
And there's more and more bots there than ever before. And there was no incentive to really clean that up.
The bots are insane.
So follow numbers are mostly a lie already.
Yep.
They're like directionally correct. You can kind of compare them to each other within the same system. It's like, oh, if you have 100,000 followers and I have 50,000 followers and it's on the same app, then, you know, relatively 2x the amount of audience size. But my point is even with that many users, the cool part about Nostr is that actually anyone can look at the open graph and make their own analysis. And in general, that's actually, I think, hurt us because people estimate low. Because there's a lot of lurkers. There's like people, like I'll post a Nostr post and like people that never use the Nostr app see that post. Like they're not getting counted in those stats. But if they had clicked the link in Twitter, they'd be counted in the stats. Even if they're not signed in. But anyway, my point is 200,000 people. If there's breaking news or something interesting that happens on the internet, it usually gets cross-posted to Nostr already now in its infancy. And so there's like a critical mass where if there's enough people using Nostr that anything important that happens outside of Nostr gets cross-posted to Nostr for engagement and zaps, and vice versa, anything interesting that gets posted to Nostr gets cross-posted to X and TikTok and stuff for engagement, then it's good. At that point, it's already good enough to be used as your primary tool. And I think we're pretty close to that.
I've just thought, this is way too late in the conversation, but I've got a lot of new people listening right now that might even not know what Nostr is.
Yeah.
I had someone the other day. I introduced the show with Samson Mowers, him coming on for the first time on the new What Bitcoin Did. And
they didn't even know what the old
commented like,
Bitcoin
what's
did?
the old one? And there was a comment being like, Peter McCormack used to run it. And it was, who's Peter McCormack?
Eternal September.
Yeah, exactly. So do you want to actually explain what Nostr is?
So Nostr, I think I kind of said it already, but Nostr is an open, verifiable, permissionless protocol for identity and speech. You can kind of think about like what Bitcoin is for money, Nostr is for speech and identity. Rather than having an account with like a big tech company, you have a public key, private key pair, just like Bitcoin. And that is your user control. So a company does not own that identity for you. They don't own your followers. They don't own your content. It has an open server system, so anyone can run a server. Anyone can hold your posts for you. You can run your own server. And it's incredibly simple, but as a result, it can be very powerful in how you use it. And I would just say to people that if that kind of thing intrigues you, I've been heavily focused on building out the Primal app, which you can just find in your app stores by searching Primal. My fund 1031 is the largest investor in Primal, and I'm very focused on the day-to-day on help building that product out. It's completely open source, and it leverages the Nostr protocol. But the cool part there is, first of all, because it's open source, anyone can fork Primal and create their own version. Secondly, because it's on an open protocol, if Primal decided to be evil and tried to block you from accessing Primal or whatever, literally all you have to do is take your private key, copy paste into another Nostr app. There's dozens of Nostr apps that are stable at this point that you can just paste them into. And just think about that for a second. Like, the switching costs have never been lower. Mm-hmm. Instead of walled gardens, you basically I like to say, instead of walled gardens, what we want is open fields. No one wants to like hang out in a walled garden. You want to hang out in open, beautiful fields. You got mountains in the skyline, and you're out in nature. And when you have those switching costs so low, it keeps the companies that interact honest with the user, because the user ultimately has leverage and can just leave and doesn't lose their followers, doesn't lose their content, doesn't lose anything in the process. Like you can leave X and go to TikTok, but you're starting fresh. You're starting completely fresh. There's massive switching costs from going to YouTube to Rumble. And historically, you know, one of the things that we're quite proud of at 1031 is most professional investors in startups are pushing for the walled garden model. It's the easier model. You wall in your users, you add switching costs, you add friction. Maybe you even petition regulators to make regulatory moats around your businesses, make it even harder for people to switch, and then you monetize the fuck out of the users. Not only do we support our founders pushing for more open models, we actually push them in the direction of open models. We prefer if they move to models that are more open fields than walled gardens. And I think that alone, that little difference, which is actually massive and foundational, makes a way healthier experience with users and their apps.
Because it just switches the incentives entirely.
Completely different. And so like, I'll bring it back to Bitcoin. Like if you're using Moon Wallet and you don't like Moon Wallet, or Moon Wallet makes some changes that you don't like, you can literally in one Bitcoin transaction send to Phoenix Wallet. And so all of a sudden, Moon and Phoenix need to be good to their users. Now, even that has more switching costs than Nostr apps. Like it's literally just Control-C, Control-V. It is the lowest switching cost you could ever imagine.
Yeah.
And I think as you decrease those switching costs, all of a sudden you have really beautiful, healthy experiences start to really happen on our devices and the tools we rely on.
Yeah, I don't spend enough time on Nostr. Like,
yeah, you should use it more.
I should. I mean, I honestly would love to just not use any social media.
I know, but that's the problem. The funniest part is it's being bootstrapped by people that generally hate social media.
It's kind of cool to see the vlogging craze going on. Is that still happening?
Yeah, American Idol, baby.
Yeah.
He's the one who started that craze.
He would be
organic.
If he leaned into the Bitcoin influencer thing, he would be fucking incredible.
I mean, he already kind of does. He's like a professional.
Yeah, but if he did it on a
he's
broader
like a
scale,
philosopher king.
He is a philosopher king, but he needs to be doing it on like Instagram and TikTok.
Yeah, so if you know who most of your listeners probably don't even know who American Idol is anymore.
No, he's been on a few times.
Okay, well, he's Nostr only.
Yeah.
He came out of.
Do you know why he's Nostr only?
Yeah, because he like lost his password.
He lost his phone that had Twitter.
Yeah, like we came from different directions, but we ended up in the same position. I mean, like I think people will use it if you use it in addition to your other stuff, fine. I think ultimately it becomes like the source of truth. Like you have use everywhere else. But if someone actually wants to like link back to your content, the best place to link them to is Nostr, because you know it's not going to have a paywall. It's not going to have a login wall. It's always verifiable. Like in the land of deepfakes and AI, like everything should be signed. If you watch this podcast on YouTube, there's no way for you to know if YouTube didn't change what we said. Like that's actually more insidious than censorship. Like they could just dynamically change what we say in this conversation depending on who is listening. So like 99% of people could be listening to this conversation and they would hear what we're actually talking about. And then maybe people that live in Kenya hear a slightly different take.
That's a wild thought. Mills was telling me
there'd be no way for us to, just to be clear, there's no way for you to verify if that happened or not. But on Nostr, even with the smaller user base, every video is hashed and signed, so you know that video has not been changed at all.
This is a complete tangent, but that reminded me of something Mills told me. I think it was in Riga. She said that there's a supermarket here in Nashville that has prices that adjust depending on who you are.
Well, that's pretty fucked up.
Have you heard that? So like if you're on welfare, you'll get a different price for goods.
I didn't hear about that, but that's what people have theorized like that's what airline companies and stuff do.
Yeah. And
dynamic pricing.
Use a VPN when you're buying a ticket. But that's fucking scary.
That's going to become the norm. Like there's...
The thing that's weird about that though is it's
data profiling.
But it's like what is the price of $1 at that point?
Yeah.
Because if $1 is different from me than it is to you, then how do you have any confidence in the cost of anything?
Well, what I've always said is one of the coolest parts about Bitcoin is in a post-truth world, Bitcoin is truth. Like it's the only thing that you know is real and tangible. It's a 24/7, 365 free market. Nobody can fake it. You know you own it. You know its value. Right now we measure the value in dollars, but in the future it'll be measured in how many cows you can buy, or how many houses you can buy, and just pure purchasing power. It's truth. And so something like Nostr becomes that for, we always say like, fix the money, fix the world. The money is just one piece of it. We got to fix the other things too. And in a post-truth world, speech and identity is even more important on the internet. And so like, how are we actually going to verify that? And I like to use video as an example because I think it's more relatable to people. It feels more insidious for it to be modified. Like people see a fake video, but like, you know how many times you see like fake screenshots of tweets and stuff?
Oh yeah, all the time. But normally you can like, this is something that AI has changed completely, because when you used to see those, you could tell like the text was a bit different or something.
Yeah.
But the deep fake of kind of anything is like a real threat to just knowing what the truth is.
Exactly. So I think that part is what people are sleeping on. I think most people don't really care about the censorship resistant part.
So that
I think it's
still
the open and verifiable part that is the most important.
But that can still happen on Nostr, but then your identity, your MPub is tied to that. So you essentially get punished by your social graph.
No. If you open Primal and you look at what Bitcoin did that was posted there,
you know it's come from me.
My app is automatically in the background verifying that you posted it and no one in the middle has changed it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, maybe you don't trust the app. You can use a different app. That app will also check and make sure it's true. Maybe you don't trust that app. You can actually do it by hand. It's like raw Nostr data is actually very simple. You see a hash of the video, which is like the integrity of the video. So if there's any change to the video, the hash changes. So it's like a text string that you know hasn't been changed. And then it's signed on top of that so you know who posted it. So those two little pieces of basic tech in a very simple just text readout allow you to easily verify that hasn't been changed. Right now, I don't think Elon would mess with, or Zuckerberg. I use Elon as an example a lot because I think most people don't trust big tech, but they trust Elon. He's like better of the worst.
He probably is.
Yeah, I think he is too. I think that's completely fair. But let's use Zuckerberg because he's actually like evil head honcho number one. 5 billion users. The only thing that's stopping Facebook adoption is internet access and birth rate. They've literally saturated the global internet accessible population in the world. 5 billion people.
Dude,
We're like 8.5 billion people, but like 3 billion of them don't have internet.
I've been in the middle of rural Malawi and people just use WhatsApp.
Well, what they do is they give them basically like free phone plans that only work on Facebook services. Like they have unlimited data on WhatsApp, but nothing else. Because they know they need people to get it. Like Facebook will subsidize that just to harvest your data.
Yeah.
But Zuckerberg, imagine if you are a small nation state. Let's use Kenya as an example again. You're president of Kenya and you want to send a post out to your people. The status quo right now is that Zuckerberg, first of all, controls whether or not you can send it, whether or not people see it, and they could actually modify it in transit and no one would know. And once again, the most insidious part is they can modify it for a small subset. A small tribe that is in one region of Kenya or whatever will see a slightly different post than everyone else. And even if people report that, everyone is going to be like, is that true? Is that true? I don't know. I can't verify it. I'm trying to figure out. There's just massive confusion. And that's going to get worse and worse. It's not how like digital society should be built. Our lives have never been so digital. And it's built on like this complete shoddy foundation. Like we need to fix the foundation. And once again, like I know Bitcoin will be a part of it. I don't know if it'll necessarily be Nostr, but something like Nostr. And the pace of improvement on Nostr and just the organic developer community, this open source community, has just been absolutely massive to watch. Like I witnessed it and then I joined the fray. Like you can't manufacture that kind of excitement and that kind of developer attention.
Do you wish you could access cash without selling your Bitcoin? Well, Ledger makes that possible. Ledden are the global leader in Bitcoin-backed lending, and since 2018, they've issued over $9 billion in loans with a perfect record of protecting client assets. With Ledden, you get full custody loans with no credit checks, no monthly repayments, just easy access to dollars without selling a single sat. As of July 1st, Ledden is Bitcoin only, meaning they exclusively offer Bitcoin-backed loans with all collateral held by Ledden directly or their funding partners. Your Bitcoin is never lent out to generate interest. I recently took out a loan with Ledden, and the whole process couldn't have been easier. It took me less than 15 minutes to go through the application, and in just a few hours I had the dollars in my account. It was super smooth. So if you need cash but you don't want to sell Bitcoin, head over to ledden.io/WBD and you'll get 0.25% off your first loan. That's ledn.io/WBD. Bitcoin is absolutely ripping, and in every bull market, there's always a new wave of investors, and with it, a flood of new companies, new products, and new promises. But if you've been around long enough, you've seen how this story ends for a lot of them. Some cut corners, take risks with your money, or just disappear. That's why when it comes to buying Bitcoin, the only exchange I recommend is River. They deeply care about doing things right for their clients and are built to last with security and transparency at their core. With River, you have peace of mind knowing all their Bitcoin is held in multi-sig cold storage, and it's the only Bitcoin-only exchange in the US with proof of reserves. There really is no better place to buy Bitcoin, so to open an account today, head over to river.com/WBD and earn up to $100 in Bitcoin when you buy. That's river.com/WBD. What if you could lower your tax bill and stack Bitcoin at the same time? Well, by mining Bitcoin with Blockware, you can. New tax guidelines from the Big Beautiful Bill allow American miners to write off 100% of the cost of their mining hardware in a single tax year. That's right, 100% write-off. If you have 100k in capital gains or income, you can purchase 100k of miners and offset it entirely. Blockware's mining as a service enables you to start mining Bitcoin right now without lifting a finger. Blockware handles everything from securing the miners to sourcing low-cost power to configuring the mining pool. They do it all. You get to stack Bitcoin at a discount every single day while also saving big come tax season. Get started today by going to mining.blockwaresolutions.com/WBD, and for every hosted miner purchased, you get 1 week of free hosting and electricity. Of course, none of this is tax advice. Speak with Blockware to learn more at mining.blockwaresolutions.com/WBD.
So we should talk about Bitcoin. We've barely talked about Bitcoin yet.
Let's go back to Bitcoin. What's your price prediction for the year?
I don't like price predictions.
What's your favorite Bitcoin stock?
Higher than right now. My favorite Bitcoin stock.
I know what your favorite Bitcoin stock is.
Tell me.
Well, I think it's probably, is it right here on the
I don't do
screen?
that. I mean, maybe by the time the show goes out. No, it's not. I do like Iron though.
Do you not put them on the screen somewhere?
No.
Are they right here?
No, they're not there either. They're just click on the description, click on Iron, find out more.
What do you want to talk about with Bitcoin? I've never been more bullish on Bitcoin. I think.
Are we going to have 200K by conference day? Finally.
Eventually, yeah.
Eventually, 5 years later. I kind of do want to talk about treasury companies with you. I know we said we wouldn't.
Yeah, let's talk about them.
Do you think they're good for Bitcoin? People buying Bitcoin's cool. But my fear is that there's a lot of people who are going to
literally every episode is just a treasury company episode for you now.
It
should be what Bitcoin stocks did.
I own 2 stocks. I've only ever owned 2 stocks.
What 2 stocks do you own?
Iron.
Okay.
I wish you didn't ask me that question. And B-Hodl.
There you go. Is this financial advice?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. This is a securities violation.
This is not financial advice. But are they good for Bitcoin? Because I get...
Well, it depends on what you mean by that. I think they're definitely, as a Bitcoin holder, if more people are buying Bitcoin, it increases the Bitcoin purchasing price. It accelerates Bitcoinization.
Yeah.
And it is unequivocally a net benefit for everybody that holds Bitcoin if the purchasing power goes up. There's this weird subset of Bitcoiners that almost fetishize being poor. They would rather, they're like, I'm not in it for the money. It's no, I'm in it for the tech and the money. My family relies on Bitcoin increasing in purchasing power, or at least not going down in purchasing power.
Yeah, we all want to see number go up. Anyone that pretends they don't.
At the very least, not down, right? Our savings are in Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm.
So I think in that way, it's a win. Now, I think, in a lot of ways, you can make that same argument for shitcoins.
Mm-hmm.
When EOS did their when EOS did their ICO,
They bought a shitload of Bitcoin.
Where did they take all the proceeds? They put it all in Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Where when Tezos did theirs, where they still, like, if you go onto Bitcoin Treasuries or whatever to the private companies page, like 2 of the largest holders in private companies that we know of are shitcoins.
And
it's specifically the shitcoin founders, not the individuals that bought the shitcoins that went down.
Yeah.
So why do I say that? I say that because I think, first of all, it's important to isolate in this current dynamic. You really have strategy, and then you have everybody else.
100%.
And then there's some nuance in there, like there's some players that are slightly larger that are trying to differentiate themselves in some ways or not, but it's still very early. But you very much have strategy in everyone else. And I think when you look at mostly the long tail, it's predatory on individual retail investors who are looking for get rich quick schemes, essentially, right? Which is the same dynamic that we saw with shitcoins.
Totally. And the crazy thing is, it's as if Bitcoin is now not volatile enough for people.
Correct. But this is once again eternal September, because it was the same thing with Ethereum and Solana and all these other things, and BitMEX 100x.
Yeah.
Right.
But
people
at least
are always, they come in, they think they're late, and they leverage themselves up in some way or another to try and get it back. They usually get wrecked. They'd probably be better off staying on stacking sats. The insidious thing about this piece is, like, over the last 10 years, like, something beautiful happened on the internet with Bitcoin culture. And I'm not going to pretend that everyone was super ethical and, you know, that Bitcoiners were perfect or whatever, but like, we had a pretty strong ethical compass in a wide swath of Bitcoin culture. And now a lot of the loudest voices in Bitcoin culture have gone, they've all been bought by, they all joined Treasury companies. And they're effectively, instead of saying, you should learn how to self-custody Bitcoin, you should learn how to buy the real thing, and you should stay on stack sats, is like, no, buy my stock instead. And that part is painful to see. Does it hurt the Bitcoin movement long term? Nope. Does it hurt individuals that are holding self-custody Bitcoin themselves? Nope. Do people have a right to get wrecked? Yep. I'm a free market maximalist. Like, buy whatever the hell you want. I've always said this about shitcoins too. I think I've been relatively consistent. Shitcoins are not a threat to Bitcoin. They're a threat to users that choose to speculate on them and end up getting wrecked. Are there always exceptions to the rule where people end up outperforming Bitcoin and it turns into a great financial decision for them? Yes, that's true as well. You bought the Ethereum ICO and then sold it for Bitcoin at the right time. You did quite well for yourself. I think all these things are constants. But I do think that at least, and maybe it's just a phase. It's probably just a phase. But in terms of mind share, the treasury companies have just like completely dominated this cycle. And just to once again bring it back in perspective, is like spring 2017, summer 2017. Like, I was literally sitting there myself. I thought the Ethereum ICO was a scam. Thought all the other ICOs were a scam. It's really hard to explain it if you weren't there. But I was like sitting there, I was like, am I the retard? Am I the dumbass? Like, are there just going to be 1,000 different pre-mined shitcoins that all outperform Bitcoin? And it turned out I wasn't. But I would be lying if I didn't say that there was like a couple month period there where I was like, maybe I'm wrong. And there's a lot of similarities over this year with that.
Apart from they're not performing particularly well on the whole.
Well, recently, like a strategy bull will be quick to remind you of what the returns for the last 2 years. But if the last year has underperformed Bitcoin.
But I agree with you that the strategy is almost like its own thing. Like, the stuff they're doing is actually interesting. Like, I think the preferreds are interesting. I think they'll do pretty well. Like, I don't own any. I don't plan to own any, but I still think it'll do quite well.
But if you bought Metaplanet at the right time.
Yeah, Metaplanet's done well. There's a few.
Yeah. It's a timing thing.
But I do wonder if the story's kind of ending.
I don't know. I mean, Maybe to some degree, but maybe it's also just beginning.
But I mean, you look what's happened with NACA. Like,
Been a fucking disaster for
it's
retail
savage.
investors.
Yeah, like it's basically it's the same price it was a year ago before the merger even happened.
It's lower, I think.
I mean, that's pretty rough.
Yeah, I don't know. I think the trend of companies buying Bitcoin and putting it on their balance sheet is definitely just beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I think the question becomes, as someone who loves free markets and believes they lead to human flourishing, like, I think it's a question of how markets value different things, right? And I think specifically companies that don't have cash flow and revenue growth and like real business plans, and they're just relying on a debt arbitrage play or hoping that their MNAV is high so they can just sell stock on retail
That's not
at a
interesting.
premium to buy Bitcoin, will start to be valued accordingly.
Yep.
And over the last year or so, they've probably been valued too high. And that's when, like, you go into, like, you can go back and forth on whether or not Strategy's preferred shares is genius or a recipe for disaster. Like, people swing both sides of it. But the thing is there is something interesting and unique there in the market that needs to be valued accordingly. And the market has no idea how to value it right now. And that's, I think, also what we saw in the early days of sell converts, sell ATMs, buy Bitcoin. What do I value that at? And is MNAV even the correct way to think about it? You know, I don't think anyone really has that answer.
I mean, shout out to you. You called Saylor making a stable coin a long time ago, and he's essentially done that.
Yeah, with STRC.
But I think there's two lies that are told about treasury companies. One is the jurisdictional arbitrage. I don't believe that exists. Like, I think there's certain edge cases where it does. Like, I think Metaplanet.
Just Japan, basically, is the only one.
But like these companies that are starting, like, I know we talked about BHODL. It's also like the term treasury company is annoying because like any company putting Bitcoin on the balance sheet,
I think leveraged Bitcoin equity is a better term.
Yeah.
But treasury company has Lindy. Like, we're just calling them treasury companies. That's what they're called. No one wants to call them leveraged Bitcoin equity.
And BHODL isn't doing that. But anyway, regardless of them,
we don't have to argue about your treasury company.
They're not my treasury company. I have nothing to do with them at all. But like the idea of creating a treasury company in the UK or in Australia or in anywhere else in the world, because that's some kind of jurisdictional arbitrage, like is nonsense.
I think that's
like
bullshit,
you can still buy Strategy in the UK very easily, and
you can definitely buy Bitcoin everywhere,
of course. And like, really, what are you actually gaining from it? You're you know, let's say you're worth $1 billion. Like, are you really going to tap into like these pension funds and like capital markets?
Well, I think that's also part of the lies. Like, they keep saying like it's for institutional investors. If it's for institutional investors, like, why are you hiring podcasters? Like, it's most of them are very clearly retail focused.
Are you disappointed in the podcasters that have moved into the boards of these treasury companies? And
look,
who's left? You guys?
There's not many free agents
Walker,
left.
Me.
There's very few free agents left.
I guess you're on the board of Fold.
I'm not on the board of Fold.
Oh, you're not? 1031 are on the board of Fold, though.
Jonathan's on the board of Fold. Yeah. I've never told anyone to buy Fold stock. But we are an investor in them before they went public. We helped them go public. Look, I mean, we're in the business of, if our founders want to do something, we'll help support them. Like, it's their businesses. And I do think that they want to have a strong cash flow positive Bitcoin financial services business. They're not trying to play the same game that the other treasury companies are trying to play. And they're also, the market is not valuing them in that expectation. They've almost never traded at a premium to MNAV. I do have some ethical concerns about SPACs in general.
Why?
Because like the way they do the lockups, they pretend it's like to protect retail, but it actually usually creates a dynamic where retail, it becomes predatory for retail. You trade at a slight premium in the beginning and then it collapses almost every time, is how that happens. The cool thing is if you have Bitcoin on your balance sheet, it kind of tends to make a floor to a degree. I mean, it can go negative, but it's better than something like a Virgin Galactic or something where like it literally just can go all the way to zero basically. But yeah, I mean, once again, not an expert on that stuff. My savings are it's like 100% in Bitcoin and the investments we make through 1031 into Bitcoin startups, freedom focused startups in general. We have some non-Bitcoin companies in there. But anyway, yeah, this is, I think like, just to bring it back for a second, am I disappointed? Maybe that's a little bit too harsh. Like you asked if I regretted deleting my Twitter. I actually don't regret deleting my Twitter at all. What I do have some regret for is maybe I got a little bit ahead of myself, and I apologize to anyone who thought I was treating them like a dick and pompous and saying like, I'm better than you for deleting my Twitter. Like if you want to use your Twitter, if you want to use TikTok, you want to use whatever, use what you want. I don't really fucking give a shit. Who's me to judge how you live your life? I feel bad about that. I was like, especially I was in all caps mode. Like I was a little bit aggressive. So like I don't want to like cast broad disappointment on an industry. People can live their lives and choose what they want to do. I think a lot of people are making mistakes though.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot of reputational risk in doing it.
And yeah, and I think reputation, you know, at the end of the day, like first of all, like I'm also never going to tell people that they should have children. I think it's a beautiful experience. I think most people should consider it.
People should have children.
And yeah, but I never want to be like the pushy parent. I love it. Anyway, at the end of the day, you got to look your kids in the eye. In 10 years, you're going to have to look your kids in the eye and tell them, you know, how you acted and hopefully be a good example to them. And I think a lot of people are not acting on that first principle.
I'm trying to think if I am.
I think you mostly are.
Go on.
I think none of us are perfect, right? Like I think if you think you're not a hypocrite, you're probably just blinded to your hypocrisy. And so we should try and reduce our hypocrisy as much as possible. Like I am definitely not perfect. I'm not all seeing. People shouldn't blindly trust me. But you try and be better. Always try and be better. Always try and be less of a hypocrite. If you're not trying to do that, then you're failing. So focus on that. But then to bring it back to the Bitcoin Treasury companies, the example I like to use is like, at some point we're going to see like an immensely profitable company like Apple sweeping their cash flow into Bitcoin. We already see it in the private sector. You know, Strike is
Tether.
Tether. I mean, Tether is like the behemoth in the room. Tether's, you know, on track to make $25 billion this year, and they sweep it all into Bitcoin and gold, all the profits. Not the reserves. The reserves are held in treasuries. But they have 75 people, and they just sweep it all into Bitcoin and gold. Strike has been profitable for 5 quarters, and they just sweep everything into Bitcoin. I think that's the next shift. Mm-hmm. And I value those companies way higher than companies that don't have a sustainable cash flow and business drive component.
Yeah, that seems healthy. But I don't know how I assume the like trade-off that people like Apple are trying to make right now, they must be aware of what Saylor's doing. They must see how beneficial that's been to the company.
They'd be completely blind if they didn't see it, right?
But like, obviously he did that presentation for Microsoft, and they don't have to take leverage on Bitcoin, but they could put a massive portion of their cash balance into Bitcoin.
Yeah, they just have huge cash balances that they're not doing anything with.
But the only thing I can think of, and I could be totally wrong here, but is that they see that as somehow, if they made that move, it would be seen badly in the market and their share price would be punished.
Yeah. I think there's career risk still.
Mm-hmm. How does that change?
Well, we're already kind of seeing it. So like on the 1031 side, we interact with like a lot of family offices. So rich families, institutions like endowments, college endowments and stuff. And our bread and butter has been like someone works in a family office or someone works in an institution and they're on the investment committee and they're already Bitcoiners. I listen to the podcasts and stuff. And I know what Nostr is. And so they see the value and they want to move into Bitcoin. But historically, most of the people you talk to, they don't want to make a risky decision that might cost them their job. If they just go into equity indexes, they just go into S&P 500 indexes, they hold treasuries and stuff, like, yeah, they might underperform, but like they're not going to make a drastic mistake that will cost them their livelihood, and then they're going to have to worry how to feed their family, right? No one wants to do that. No one wants to take that risk, especially in an institutional environment. That has flipped. Like it's getting to the point now where if you're not even doing like a little exposure and you're an investment committee, you're not doing a little exposure to Bitcoin, you'll probably have career risk because you're failing your fiduciary responsibility to whoever your clients are. So we're already starting to see that flip, and I think we're going to start to see it flip on the public side. Are we recording?
We're recording.
You just freaked me out. I think we'll start to see that flip on the public side. Like I think a lot of us realize that it's grossly irresponsible for Apple to be holding large amounts of cash right now in an inflationary environment, in an environment where inflation is grossly underreported and is way higher. To quote sailors, a melting ice cube. They are holding a melting ice cube, and maybe it's not Bitcoin. Maybe it's maybe some gold. You know, I don't know. I think they should put it in Bitcoin. The example I use for my own projects is OpenSats, 501c3 charity. We don't take any cut of donations. I volunteer my time to do that. We support open source contributors. Our treasury strategy is quite simple. You give us dollars, we put it in Bitcoin. We're sending out $1 million worth of Bitcoin a month. We obviously have no business model because we're a fucking charity. So, you know, we're cash flow negative, right? We're just sending out $1 million a month. And the amount we have in our treasury is double the amount we've ever raised. This is insane. Like, that's just crazy. And so, like, if we were holding cash, we'd already be out of cash. We'd have to go out and raise more money.
And I mean, funnily enough, though, the companies that have done that are the ones that are going to start doing treasury plays.
I mean, maybe, but the question is, like, once again, I think
OpenSats treasury company coming soon.
We'll do the OpenAI model. We'll just pivot to for-profit. We'll take a 49% investment from Microsoft.
Only invest in closed source software.
I'll give myself 20% equity. Fuck Sam Altman. I
want to talk about Sam Altman.
I think, look, for better or for worse, we're calling them treasury plays, but it's important to you got to distinguish.
What Bitcoin did is treasury company.
But it's not, right, it's not, because now treasury companies mean leveraged Bitcoin equities.
Yeah.
So what Bitcoin did is a profitable private business that saves free cash flows in Bitcoin. And like, well, maybe we're going to need to come up with a better like one-liner term, but it's not Semler Scientific or
they don't exist anymore.
Well, I don't think the merger is actually finalized yet. I don't really understand how public markets work completely, but
yeah, not financial advice. I think people are waking up to that, and I think the most clear sign of that is the JP Morgan stuff that came out recently with their debasement trade.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a trade. That's the thing I think they're missing, is that a trade assumes you're going to go back to cash at some point. But I do wonder if that's the kind of thing that tips Apple, Microsoft, those big profitable companies over the edge. Is that like, this isn't just us niche weirdos on the internet shouting about Bitcoin being a hedge against debasement. It's JP Morgan saying that.
Yeah, like Larry Fink.
Yeah.
Like BlackRock's, I think their most successful ETF ever is the Bitcoin ETF.
Yeah.
I mean, by the way, just to go back to this, like in a better situation, OpenSats would be like sustainable without me having to go out and raise donations for free. Like I don't get paid to do that, and it sucks. It sucks constantly going out to raise money. So like I think the way this all scales, I think the way freedom scales is sustainable, profitable businesses that build on top of open source software and open protocols. Because anyone who's ever tried to raise for charitable causes knows it's just a forever grind. Like Bitcoin helps. It makes operations easier. It makes our treasury increase in value rather than decrease in value over time, and spreads it out more and takes less pressure off of us. But it still doesn't solve the underlying problem, where at the end of the day, it's a finite amount of money and you have to just constantly look for donors to try and do it. So open source, open protocols, they compound beautifully. They're viral in nature. They're hard to control. You don't have a company you can pressure, an individual you can pressure. Governments have really hard time stopping them. But then at the end of the day, how do they get scaled out? They get scaled out by private companies that have sustainable business models. It's a flywheel. And historically, the way they have been is with private businesses that have predatory business models. So, but if those private businesses didn't have predatory business models, then you kind of get the best of both worlds. You'd get the scale that you see with something like Gmail, but you wouldn't see the predatory nature of their business model. So you'd have something maybe like a Proton Mail or something, where they don't scan your email, but they charge you subscription fees, and maybe it's a less profitable business, but it's still profitable and not taking donations to sustain itself.
You know, all the fights that are happening in Bitcoin at the moment with, I mean, Treasury companies are an obvious one.
Yeah.
Not core stuff. I know you're scared to talk about it.
I'm not scared to talk about it. I just talk about it all the fucking time.
We don't have to talk about it,
and
but
people just get mad at me. Like people are very emotional. By the time this comes out, when is this coming out?
Wednesday next week, probably.
Like Core V30 will probably already released. The world is not going to end. I think the discourse around it has gotten very negative.
Yeah, it's degraded to an insane level.
I think it doesn't help anybody.
100%.
I think ultimately Bitcoin is a generational project. I think most participants believe that Bitcoin is the best money and we need to maintain it as such. I think most participants believe that we need to be very conservative with how it's developed on the protocol level specifically. We can move a little bit faster on apps and stuff. But even with apps, like if someone's got their life savings in your app, like don't fuck it up.
I want to even be more explicit there. Like I think it's not just most people. I think Core also are absolutely
100%.
included in that.
But like Core is also not this.
It's not a business.
And it's also not this homogeneous entity. It's a bunch of developers. Now, yes, there's a small subset of maintainers and very active contributors that are friendly with each other, and there is an in-group there. But the answer here is, what I would like to see is node operators have more options. This is something that we've been intimately focused on OpenSats. OpenSats has funded over 320 open source contributors with Bitcoin. A very small subset of those are core contributors. Everyone we funded has been listed on our website. We try and act, with more transparency than 99% of charities in the world, not just in Bitcoin. And we're open to funding alternative implementations, give people more choice. And I think that's better for core too. Like, I think if you're one of the few core maintainers, like it'd be good on your soul and stress and whatnot if there was another team that was maintaining a compatible alternative.
When you say an alternative, you're not talking about Notch, you're talking about a brand new implementation. I
mean, look, I think Knots could be one of those alternatives. If and I'm going to get so much shit, like it's just so vitriolic. If Luke was more open to making it not just a Luke project, like it's very much just a Luke project. And I will say that from the very beginning, I said to Luke, I've said this publicly for about a year now, like if Knots wants to add more maintainers and more review, they can apply to OpenSats. For full disclosure, I think we've gotten 2 applications in the last year, and they were just not up to our standards. And it was not because
it's not some conspiracy.
It wasn't because of Knots. Right? Like I would like to see 20. I would like to see 100. I would like to see a whole nother implementation. I would like to see Libitcoin be funded. We've been funding Floresta, which is like a UTXO based implementation, and they're trying to add the same API bindings as Bitcoin Core. So if you're already using Bitcoin Core in your stack, you can easily switch to Floresta. I think there's just this weird cancel culture dynamic in digital society now, where everyone wants to get everyone fired they disagree with.
Did you see?
And like in this situation, I guess I'm looked at as like the manager. So like the Karens on the internet are like, hey, Odell, like you got to fire this person or this person. Actually, most of the time they don't even pick people that they want to fire. They just say all core devs are commies. Like, okay, well, all the devs we support are listed. Like, why don't you tell me which ones are commies? And then they just go silent. I mean, we saw this. You see this with people in non-Bitcoin circles, right? It's like they post a picture of someone, they're like, find him. Because he says something on the internet. It's like a gym teacher in Idaho. And then they're like, they get the guy fired. It's like a crazy dynamic.
That's the tricky thing though, where like free speech doesn't mean free speech without consequence.
But my point is like, this is not Bitcoin specific.
Oh, absolutely not.
This is a trend we've seen much broader than Bitcoin.
Have you seen this? So this happened today. I did that interview with Antoine from Core, and someone said, pay attention to the setting. All white background, white t-shirts. These guys are posing as the good guys, white knights, top-notch propaganda.
Oh, shit, I'm wearing a tan shirt.
No, I'm not in white either. This is the evil episode. But it's like people are going so far as to think I'm picking the color of my t-shirt to appear like I'm a good actor.
Yeah.
Like I feel like...
I mean, you're definitely a bad actor, so we got that settled, and it has nothing to do with your t-shirt.
Fuck you.
No, I mean, I think I think it's good that we want as many people to run nodes as possible. I think that's a really good outcome of this. I think a lot of people have been scared out of self-custody, though, which is a negative outcome of this. I don't think the world is falling.
You think people have been scared out of self-custody?
Yeah, 100%. I think, yeah, I mean, I've had a lot of people text me like, is Bitcoin about to fail? Or is it going to be a problem if I'm running a node or if I'm holding my own keys, or like, should I just hold the ETF? And I think, there's an appeal to outrage and panic and moral panic and whatnot. And it's also, there's a conflation between individual node policy and consensus rules. Like if this was a fight about, like what is and what is not a valid transaction on Bitcoin, and it was about a soft fork, it'd be a little bit different depending on what the actual circumstances were. And I will say, almost as a policy, OpenSats just does not fund really soft fork work or hard fork work on Core. Like part of the really frustrating thing about this is like the straw man argument of like, you don't care about Bitcoin as money, or you want to like change it. It's like, no, most people like agree on both of those things. Like we need to be very conservative, and we intimately care about Bitcoin as money.
Yeah.
And it feels like a distraction tactic. But anyway, like I feel like, and then I talk about it constantly. I've been very transparent about it. And I feel like it comes up all the time. And then people are always like, you never talk about it. It's like, no, I've been talking about it for like a year and a half now.
I hear you talk about it on every RHR.
Yeah. So that's why I said I didn't want to talk about it. It's something that I talk about all the time. I think it is, it's important how people think about these things.
But I think the conversation has got to the point, in my opinion, where it's almost like the people running knots feel like there's kind of core some elites that are trying to attack Bitcoin. They think that, they think by me having a conversation with Antoine, who works on Core.
You had a call with, you had a conversation with Samson, like right
a mechanic,
before.
and
yeah.
But they somehow think that there's like some co-option conspiracy thing going on. And I think a lot of it's organic. I think there's some of it is not. Like I post videos and I'll get a comment being like, run knots within a second.
Yeah.
Like some of it can't be organic, but I don't know.
I definitely do not think like they're all bots. I think there's like,
it's definitely not all bots. Don't get me wrong, like 100%. But
I think most people involved on both sides of this argument mean well.
Agree.
And a lot of them have gotten overly emotional about it and
Yep.
have hurt their own sides in a discourse way. I think there's been a lot of quote unquote core supporters that acted aggressively and demeaning to people
clearly.
that didn't understand things. And then heels were dug in, and same on the opposite side.
Yeah.
And I do think like everyone is welcome to say what they want to say. The way we run OpenSats, because it's not just me, the whole thing is, by design, you need majority board approval for any grant, was that in either direction, like we're going to try our best to be immune from social pressure, just period. That's why we're here. We're like the independent funding organization for open source in the world. Like everywhere else is relatively centralized and relatively opaque, even if they mean well. So that's just my promise to everybody. Like that's how it's going to be. So you can keep trying to get me to like cancel people or whatever. And then last but not least, you can like try and cancel me. Just don't really care. Deleted my own Twitter account. My family does not rely on podcast income. I do not need more views. If anything, less views would be better. I'm personally mission focused on making Bitcoin as usable as possible as freedom money, and as many people using it as possible.
Yeah.
That has been my mission for 10 plus years now. It's going to continue to be my mission. and we'll see how it plays out.
Yeah, I mean, for me, like I don't mind what implementation people want to run. Like that only
No,
really
run what-
matters to them. Like,
But that's the worst part is like that ultimately, like that's where the discussion should have really ended.
and I get like ideologically, I understand the viewpoint as well. Like when I speak to Mechanic, I get it. Like I agree with him in a lot of ways. It's just like, I don't know the reality of the situation. I think we'll be proven that Core 30 is not the end of Bitcoin. I really don't see that as a likelihood. I think there's been a lot of like uproar about a policy change that I'll be proven right or wrong seems inconsequential in a lot of ways. But
Yeah.
I wonder though if like this infighting is almost just like a symptom of us winning. Like there's nothing else to fight about at this point.
I mean, I think there's plenty of other things to fight about.
What should we be fighting about instead?
I'm not going to start the next fight.
Go on, start the next fight.
No, I mean, I think some of it has been boredom. Look, I just, this would be such a drama-inducing.
Go on, do it.
No. I just, I'm so sick of all the drama. Look, I mean, I think Bitcoin as freedom money is not a given. Like, I think it's good that most Bitcoiners are adversarial. I do think in this particular situation, it seems to be a little bit of a like immune response disorder. And like, we're just attacking each other. And I think some of it is because Bitcoiners that are more technical have become more irrelevant. And I think there's a desire to be relevant in Bitcoin. And I think people across the spectrum and outside of Bitcoin should just check their ego for a little bit. And once again, I've never claimed to be the humble guy. When I say stay humble, I'm reminding myself to stay humble. But I think there's just a lot of ego involved.
You think there's a bit of main character syndrome going on?
Everywhere you look, it's main characters. Once again, outside of Bitcoin too. And I think it's a product of like modern social experience, like digital social media. There's like a psychosis. And that's why I think, we need to solve that. Or ideally, I would like to see us solve that because I think our kids will grow up in a better world. Because it's just been getting worse and worse. Like everywhere you look, you see it. I mean, like you see it with like the Candace Owens, Charlie Kirk, Nick Fuentes stuff that's going on right now, completely outside of Bitcoin. They all want it to be about themselves. There's always something breaking. There's always this new news tidbit, something you got to get in front of the cameras or whatever. And a lot of it is just like broken incentives all the way down. The algorithms and engagement and addiction, data surveillance, all mixed into one. But yeah. And then the last piece I would say on it is I've seen a lot of the anti-core sentiment be that we're concerned about VC capture. I agree with that concern, high level. I think that's absolutely true.
What VC capture?
Specifically, the argument they use is Citadel. Raised a bunch of money. Specifically, Peter Thiel led that raise. They want to do like Ethereum-like stuff on Bitcoin. 1031 did not invest in that. Citria specifically, I think even if this policy rule didn't change, they were still going to proceed and they were going to just do it in a worse way for Bitcoin.
I'm pretty sure that's what they explicitly said.
Yeah. But just the idea of VC capture, the idea of investor capture, and it doesn't have to be just VC, just rich people that are interacting with Bitcoin and want control over Bitcoin. The way you solve that is by having more independent, transparent organizations that are providing ethically aligned funding to developers. It's not trying to defund the devs. If you defund the devs, they're only going to get their funding from those people.
Yep.
And I say this as someone who has a fund.
But there's also
Right?
there are known bugs in Bitcoin that need fixing. We need devs.
And we need maintenance. And this is a generational project.
Yep.
And we don't really have that many. We have the most eyes on the code of any open source project in existence, really. And it's not enough eyes. It's still not enough eyes.
It's like 50 people work on core.
And the alternative, and people are going to say, like, this is a straw man, blah, blah, blah. It's like, okay, well, Knots is just basically 100% funded by a single investor-funded company, which is Ocean. Right? Like, that's the alternative you see. That's what happens if you don't have a bunch of independent funding. So I will just say that I think this is something that OpenSats has diagnosed very early on. It's one of the reasons we exist. It's one of the reasons the volunteers that contribute their time alongside me do it. And that this is a long process, and let's not make, overly emotional decisions in the short term because we don't want to deal with drama or whatnot that will instead result in negative knock-on effects in the future, because there is a pipeline here. You can't just like, if you alienate a bunch of open source contributors, you can't just like immediately bring them back in. There's like years in the making.
Mm-hmm.
And the old ones need to train the new ones, and you need like
and they could go and earn
layover
5 times as much money working at Google
or a Treasury company.
Yeah. What's your take on like BitVM stuff in general? Like, it's not specifically Citria, but these kind of roll-ups, layer 2s that we're going to see start coming to Bitcoin.
I think it's mostly a distraction. I'd like, as a Bitcoiner, I haven't really seen use cases that I would like to see that don't exist, that these things aim to provide. For the users that do want to see some of these things, like, I don't see why you couldn't just use like a Tron or something.
Would you not rather just see it on Bitcoin?
But like, why? Like, what are you trying to do on it?
I mean, but it feels like the argument, this isn't my argument, but the argument you saw a lot was like anything useful that happens on Ethereum will eventually be on Bitcoin.
Yeah, well, like, let me use the argument of like Tether, because I think Tether is actually probably the most compelling argument. And you don't need BitVM or Citria or whatever to do that. I mean, you could do it today on Liquid.
Mm-hmm.
I know Spark wants to do it with Spark. It's the state chain from LightSpark. If you are connecting to a real world asset like Tether, you are intimately trusting Tether has the actual treasuries backing it. So the underlying protocol technology that you use to interact with that does not actually change the trust model for how you interact with it. If you're using Tron Tether and Justin Sun rugs you, Paolo can just send out a tweet and be like, we moved your balance to Solana, and then you're on Solana.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's all it is. So why do we need that on Bitcoin? And if we put it on Bitcoin, if you actually want to see users, it needs to be cheaper and it has to have better UX. Otherwise, they're just going to keep using Tron. And if it's cheaper and has better UX, then it's probably also incredibly centralized. So you're not actually even getting a lot of the trust benefits. You're not getting a lot of benefits, if any, from using it in a Bitcoin quote unquote native way.
But I guess the other like side of that is, let's say you're a massive fan of like covenants. One of these BitVMs can do something that allows that, not without changing Bitcoin. You can go have unilateral.
Yeah, but then I think the question is like, what is the trust? What is the trust elements there?
Well, as long as you have unilateral exit, like, I'm not saying it's definitely not as good as just having Bitcoin, but it's quite good.
Look, I would say that I am personally not interested in changing Bitcoin at a protocol level to facilitate this type of stuff.
Mm-hmm. But it doesn't need to be.
Yeah, if it doesn't need to be, then let people build it, and we'll see if it's useful or not. We can't stop them anyway.
And eventually,
but I will say, putting my funding hat on the 1031 side specifically, we don't fund that. Like, that's just, it's too out there on the risk curve. The business models aren't clear.
Mm-hmm. I think there'll be a load of shit that falls by the wayside on the way.
Maybe it makes more sense on like an open source nonprofit side. But I will say that we haven't really seen many compelling, if any, compelling applications to OpenSats on that front.
But I know you think that at some point mempools are going to be full and never empty.
I don't know if I believe that anymore.
Oh, really?
No, I think I still believe that, but it's been hard out here.
You were right for a long time.
And then I wasn't.
Yeah. But if we did get to that point where it was really hard to get into, the next block or, anything really, you're going to need something else. And like, there's obviously...
But I think there's an argument that in that environment, and once again, I think the only thing more scarce than Bitcoin is our time.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the ways I protect my time in Bitcoin is I try not to waste too much time on like white papers and theoretical stuff until there's like actually a working product in my hand. So I will admit that like I haven't spent a lot of time like diving deep exactly into like BitVM and some of these other proposals on how to do this type of stuff because I want to see it and use it.
Yeah, and I guess there is the risk that if they could get priced out of those transactions too.
But that's where I was going with this. Is my basic understanding is that it would get quite expensive for those setups without a soft fork.
Mm-hmm.
Like the way that they're like kind of like hacking it in without doing a change to Bitcoin at the consensus level gets quite expensive. And then once again, you're better off using Tron.
Yeah.
Like if Tron is like 100x cheaper, they're going to use Tron instead.
Matt Odell says use Tron.
No, I'm not saying that. Honestly, I think people should just stay on OpenSats sats. Like once again, I wonder like what the use case is. Like first of all, I've never used Tether. I understand that there's places in the world that people want access to dollars. They can't get access to dollars through the traditional financial rails and they want to use Tether. If you do, just understand the trust dynamic. I would say that the trust dynamic in like Chase Bank or something is kind of similar. If anything, maybe Chase is more likely to freeze your funds than Tether is.
Mm-hmm.
But like in terms of like DeFi stuff and everything, like I think that's completely overrated. Like I think if you want dollars in your bank account from a loan, then you pick a trusted counterparty and you like get the dollars in your bank account because of course there's going to be trust relying on it. And most of the times when people say like, oh, this is like a trustless loan or whatever, it's like not, and it just adds a bunch of complexity that you can get rugged by the complexity as well. So you're just overcomplicating it when it eventually you're going to have, you're dealing with a centralized party anyway.
Yeah.
So like I question like what the use cases are. Like, is the use case like a sushi swap or something? Like, where you're like trading like meme coins with each other natively on Bitcoin? Like, who the fuck gives a shit?
Yeah,
like,
no one cares.
use
I've
Tron
not heard
for that.
Sushi Swap name in a long time. So I was speaking to Luke Groman this morning.
Nice.
It was a fucking great conversation.
Did you ask him what kind of node he runs?
I don't want to speak for Luke,
Okay,
but I
fair
doubt
enough.
he's running a node.
Fair enough.
Nor should he have to, I guess, if he doesn't want to.
It's his prerogative.
But he was saying something super interesting. So he's been talking about this idea that the Middle East is shifting away from the petrodollar after Israel bombed Qatar.
Yeah.
And that obviously has a massive impact on the US Treasury market.
Right.
And I do wonder if Tether ends up being like the geopolitical play that the US makes in terms of trying to back up their debt.
Yeah, I mean, they already kind of are.
Do you think that this would be the weirdest world possible? We're in a simulation, but could Tether end up being the reserve currency of the world? For like, even if it's for an interim period?
I mean, no, probably not. I mean, I don't even think Tether thinks. Actions speak louder than words, right? So, like, what is Tether doing? Tether is buying treasuries to back up their stablecoin, their USD token. Inherently unstable. It's just going down in purchasing power over time. They're buying treasuries to back their USD token. They're taking the interest off of that, the yield off of that, and that's their cash flow. That's their business. They're providing the USD tokens to users. The USD tokens aren't providing the users with the interest. So then they're making, 20 plus billion a year with like 70 employees, just pure profit. And then what are they doing with it? They are buying Bitcoin and gold, right? So they're making a calculated, very clear investment strategy that they think that they're in basically a transitory business. Mm-hmm. And then ultimately we will move to either a Bitcoin standard or a gold standard or some mix of the both. Maybe mix of the both is most likely. So that's what they clearly, I think, is what they think is going to happen. I think the dollar is in such a bad position that there's just no way out besides just inflation and irrelevance. I think Tether slows it down, but it doesn't really matter how many treasuries they buy. Like, they're so far away from being able to like reverse the pain. So then the question becomes like, do they release a new, so they have, I forget what they call it, but they have Tether Gold, mm-hmm. Which is gold-backed Tether. So do they switch to that? Do they have like a different Tether that's a basket of Bitcoin and gold and stuff, and then that becomes the reserve currency. I think all of these are just like complicated, like Rube Goldberg machines that like don't need to exist when Bitcoin exists. And so I think what happens is, I mean, look, Luke obviously spends more time on this type of stuff than I do. But we've already watched the move away from the dollar. I would pinpoint like a critical inflection point was when we weaponized the financial system using sanctions against Russia
100%.
and their treasuries. So this trend has been accelerating. It has been happening for a while and has been accelerating. And so what I think happens is the countries in the non-US sphere of influence, or countries that just in general are losing trust in the US. Are we recording?
I tried to do that without you noticing. Yes.
Will move to a non-US method of trade.
Mm-hmm.
What does that look like? Maybe it's gold. Maybe it's some kind of BRICS currency, like just a separate reserve currency that's managed by all of them together. Maybe China's the main leader of it. But in either situation, whether it's a multi-country fiat competitor or gold, or a mixture of both where gold backs a multi-currency fiat competitor, it requires trust. And so what I think happens is maybe they first move to something that requires trust. And once again, that could be managed by Tether. Maybe it's not managed by Tether. It doesn't really matter. That's just a footnote. Something that requires trust, and then trust breaks down, and then Bitcoin stands as the only way to interchange globally without trust, right? Like, can long-term China and Russia trust each other? Can China and Brazil trust each other? Like, no, I don't think so. Can India and China trust each other? I don't think so. And even if they're settling in gold, that requires a lot of trust, because you're basically like, if you want to settle physically, you're just flying fucking planes of gold everywhere. Bitcoin is strictly superior to that. So I think in a world where the US currency continues to erode in faith and value, people are going to look for an option that doesn't require trust. And that option is Bitcoin. And so the trend, there might be a transitory period where we move to something in between, but I don't think it'll be very long just because Bitcoin exists. If Bitcoin didn't exist, maybe it would be longer.
It's funny. You love the mandibles. American Hodl always makes
I was just really protecting myself. I was
you trying to say it?
No, I was trying not to say it.
Hodl always reminds me that he's the person that told you about mandibles.
And we were, on my show, on Rabbit Hole Recap.
Oh, was it?
It was on TFTC, but yeah, it was me, him, and Marty.
But
it was like 3 hours into a very drunk episode.
I actually listened to that episode back probably like a year ago. It was a good one. But in that,
and Alex Gladstein recommended it to me too. To be fair, Hodl recommended it first, and then Alex recommended it second. I was like, okay, if they both recommended it, I should read it.
And now you've become the mandibles influencer.
I mean, I think it's not like the best book, but it's an easy read, and I do think the U.S. is going through an increasingly inflationary environment. It's pretty obvious if you have eyes. And she just kind of spells it out for you in it. And then after that, but I think it won't be as bad as what's in the book, because people will have the option for Bitcoin. Like, what people don't realize is when Argentina goes through hyperinflation, it's really bad for the people.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that they can escape to the dollar makes it less bad. In a world without Bitcoin, if the U.S. went through an inflationary period, hyperinflation, and they didn't have anywhere to escape to, it'd be really, really bad. But if you have Bitcoin to escape to, it'd still be bad, but it lessens the pain and it gives you a path forward.
But in that
book, a stable way to move forward.
In that book, it's basically about the US going through hyperinflation, and they have a Bancor, which is essentially BRICS.
Yeah.
And Bitcoin fails in the book.
Yeah.
At the end of the book, spoiler alert, turn this off now if you've not read it. You should go and read it. But the last page is basically saying, and then the increased tax, and everything kind of started again. Do you think if we do go through something Mandibles-esque, that Bitcoin surviving and thriving in that can change the story?
Yeah, 100%. I would implore people to read the book, and then they should go listen to my Citadel Dispatch with Lionel Shriver, the author, where we talk about this stuff. And I was like very soft touch on Bitcoin with her. It was like only at the end. But first of all, she deserves some leniency Because when did the book come out?
You're the mandibles influencer.
I think the book came out. I'm on airplane mode.
I can tell.
I want to say the book came out in like 2015, so she was writing it in like 2013 or something. So like, I mean, if you're a casual observer, like it's almost logical to assume that Bitcoin was going to fail at that point. Did you look it up?
2016 it came out.
Yeah, so she was like writing it in 2014, 2015. 2015 we were in the high of 1,000 in 2013. We fell all the way to like 150-ish in 2015. If you're a casual observer, like of course Bitcoin's dead by like whenever the book's set, like 2032 or 2035 or whatever. So like I don't fault her for that. And actually it's kind of cool that she even was aware of it enough to like it was in passing. She's like, oh, Bitcoin failed. But yes, I do think Bitcoin changes the dynamic. Like she had, first of all, in it, she has gold confiscation, which I think will likely happen in this type of situation. Much harder to confiscate Bitcoin. Bitcoin confiscation will probably also happen, but it's just much more difficult to confiscate Bitcoin, period. Strictly better than gold in that situation. You want to cross the border with gold, what are you going to do? It's very, very difficult. Bitcoin's super easy. So Bitcoin provides this base, this escape that people have. Second of all, it really increases the potency of jurisdictional arbitrage and competition because states that are less predatory to their residents will naturally encourage more Bitcoin wealth to move into them. And I think in that type of failure mode, right? Like I think the fiat currency experiment is actually quite young in the course of human history. And yes, like if you don't think something like Bitcoin will succeed, then we probably will just repeat another fiat cycle, or maybe we switch to gold, you know? But then gold has its own issues, which results in us going back to fiat eventually. But with Bitcoin, there's a different path. Will there be taxes? Yeah, of course, there'll probably still be taxes. But I think in a world where people have more agency and control over their own money, that relationship between governments and taxation and whatnot will be ideally less predatory because it'll be more competitive. And the last thing I would add is the mandibles is mostly focused on New York. I think in general, like in a societal degradation, collapse type of scenario, a hyperinflation type of scenario, a scenario where trust in institutions break down, like dense population centers are just going to strictly do worse wherever you are. So it's important to realize that that's from where the lens is. And we have no idea, like in that scenario, like what's going on in like Tennessee, for instance, or the American West.
When I was at your place earlier this year, one of the things we were talking about before we did the show was the idea that what if we're wrong and what if gold was always the play?
Yeah.
Do you think that's likely?
Non-zero chance? Probably, yeah. I mean, I own some gold jewelry.
You're wearing it?
Yeah. This is madex.art. If you want to pick up
there's
some
an MNAV on Madex stuff.
Dope Bitcoiner jewelry. Probably will not outperform Bitcoin, but it's cool. Yeah, I mean, like gold has been ripping. I think there's two ways to look at it. First of all, gold is Lindy. The market buying gold is showing that there's obviously demand for an independent store of value asset that is like not sovereign controlled, which is like the Bitcoin value prop, right? Digital gold, like one of the most well-known Bitcoin value props. So as a Bitcoiner, that's a good sign, directionally correct. The other piece is like market cap wise, it's pretty crazy how big of a move it was.
It's having like one Bitcoin market cap every week at the moment.
Yeah, exactly. So like people that think like Bitcoin can't go from like 120K to like 250K in a matter of a week or so are like just objectively wrong based on that gold appreciation. But yeah, I mean, look, I'm humble enough to not rule that out. Who knows? Actions speak louder than words. if I thought that was the most likely case, I would just sell all my Bitcoin for gold. Haven't done that. But yeah, that also wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. Like financially, it would suck, but especially in the short and medium term. Second of all, I don't know how employable I would be.
You can't be a gold influencer.
I'd have to like work on a construction crew or something. Because my entire career, professional career, has been Bitcoin focused. So that would be embarrassing, but we'd make it work. But like, it wouldn't be it's a world on a gold standard is way better than a world on a fiat standard.
100%.
Just like strictly for my kids. But I think Bitcoin is superior in every way, and I think the market will figure it out eventually. That's just one of those, I call it like my like 2 a.m., you're like drinking with a Bitcoin buddy at 2 a.m. and you just...
What if I'm wrong?
Yeah, what if we're wrong? What if it's gold? It's like you're directionally correct, but wrong.
But I think that'll probably be the other way. Although I think gold people will be fine. I think there's a world where just hard money as a whole wins out.
Yeah, I mean, I think the gold devaluation into Bitcoin is slower.
Yeah.
Like gold isn't going to be like removed from society overnight. There's always there's a value there in just the fact that it's thousands of years old as a monetary asset. The conversation that I've been thinking about a lot lately is, I guess, just to flip the script, is top level user adoption of Bitcoin. It kind of feels like it's stalled a little bit, like of real Bitcoin. And I mean, I don't even know what the question is.
What do you mean top level adoption though? Is that people buying Bitcoin or people using Bitcoin?
How many people do you think own 10 million sats worth of Bitcoin in self-custody? So that's $12,000.
I've thought about this from like how many people own one Bitcoin.
That number's really low.
Yeah.
That's a tiny fucking number.
I would get, so this is where like
this is a more important number than like Bitcoin is not just for people that have more than $120,000 in savings. Like you can buy a fraction of a Bitcoin.
You'll all have more than $120,000 in savings if you wait long enough.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think this is where I love the stuff that Troy Cross does in terms of those surveys he does. I think it's interesting. I think Ella Huff's done some cool stuff with Cornell in terms of like collecting data.
That was a cool episode you guys did.
But I think this is the area where the numbers are just way off.
I think it's way lower.
It's way lower. So I was actually talking to Checkmate about this privately, not on the show. So he has like a chart, I'll put it up on the screen, of people who, not right now, on the video,
Okay.
Of people who own more than, I think it's maybe it's 10 million sats.
But is it addresses or?
Addresses, yeah. So this is where it gets really hard. And I think
people have more than one address.
There's like 25 million addresses that hold more than that. And so if you had to try and...
So that's the
ceiling. But in reality, I would guess...
But that's not even the upper bound because someone might own 10 addresses that have 1 million sats in them.
Correct.
So it's actually not even the upper bound.
I kind of want to pull this... Oh, I won't pull it.
But it is probably less than that.
I would guess maybe 3 to 5 million people.
Yeah. I mean, it's a gut thing. It's mostly a gut thing because you're ultimately making guesses.
What do you think?
Yeah. I think over one Bitcoin is probably less than 200,000 people, like 100 to 200,000 people. And
in a single address? Or
no, not in a single address. It's just self-custody.
Okay.
Self-custody, one Bitcoin. 100,000 to 200,000 people. Hopefully they're not holding it in one address. Like you should be using multiple addresses. It's just better practice. Most modern wallets for years have defaulted to that. So like we should assume most people are doing that. 10 million sats, self-custody, so $12,000 at the time of this recording. Yeah, like 5 to 10 million people. And so when we go back to our earlier conversation about what does success look like I feel like that's the number to look at because first of all, holding is using. You're using it as a savings mechanism. You're going to eventually spend it at some point. Otherwise, you can't realize the value. You need both spending and holding. They're both using Bitcoin. That's actually a quantifiable metric. an objective metric, 1% of the population would be 100 million people. So if we're counting that as like a user is someone that holds at least $12,000 worth of Bitcoin and ultimately spends it at some point in the future. If we want to get to 5%, we have to hit what, 500 million. So we need 100x growth just to hit 5%, if that original assumption is correct. And so I would just say to people, it's like, this is a long fucking grind. This is a century project, right? Like this is something we say internally at 1031. It's something we definitely believe at OpenSats. It's like, we're building for the next century.
Yeah.
Like you need to, it's a long, long grind. There are less users out there than you think there are.
And that number will be way smaller now.
And we need to grow that pie.
We definitely need to grow that pie, but that number will be smaller now than it would have been if we hadn't had ETFs and treasury companies and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's two different dynamics there, right? I think the ETFs definitely increase the purchasing power of Bitcoin.
100%.
I think the treasury companies do as well. And I think the purchasing power of Bitcoin has been the largest. When Bitcoin price goes up, it's the largest driver of new user growth, right? So it's hard to argue that's a net negative. I think it definitely, in individual cases, has slowed down retail coming into actual self-custody Bitcoin. I think if someone gets wrecked on a treasury company in Fidelity, their transition to move into self-custody Bitcoin is actually much more difficult than if they got wrecked on ETH. If they got wrecked on ETH and they're in Ledger or Coinbase, they can just like press the swap button and go into Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Fidelity, they have to like withdraw it and do it or whatever. The other piece here is that ETFs, competitively, I know they want to offer in-kind withdrawals where you can just withdraw Bitcoin from the ETF without a tax hit.
Didn't BlackRock announce that?
They would love to do it. They just haven't yet because
I thought they announced it recently.
They announced they want to.
Okay.
I don't think any users are doing it right now or are able to do it.
They have it in Australia.
Yeah, exactly. Like, so in that case, that actually would directly provide a path to people. But like, I think that's the number we want to grow. And I think it's important for us to be realistic about where we currently are. And I think the way you accelerate that, I think something like Bitcoin that has this natural network effect growth engine in the purchasing price increase is if like we do basically nothing, we'll probably still get global adoption at some point in the future. Just because like right now, even if there's only 10 million of us and we're all stacking, like we're going to drive that price. There's not that much Bitcoin out there, right? We're still going to drive the price up. And as we drive the price up, like more Bitcoiners will come in. So it's not like, I'm not like coming at it from like a Ponzi economics kind of point of view. Where it's like, oh, we need more new money into the system. So
we want new money in the system because we want more people to have Bitcoin.
Yeah. But so what I'm saying is like, I think it's going to happen regardless, but I would like to accelerate it. I think life is short. I don't want my kids to be like 70 years old by the time they're able to like really take advantage of like a beautiful Bitcoin global economy where they can like spend and save without permission on whatever they want to do. And the best way to accelerate is to pour money and support into the system, whether that's on the for-profit side or whether that's on the non-profit side, because we need both. We need foundational open source software and open protocols, and then we need private, profitable, ethical, aligned businesses that scale those out even further in a sustainable way. And that is what I've been mission focused on doing. And then I have the two tangential pieces, which is Bitcoin Park and the podcast for education, and Bitcoin Policy Institute to keep us out of the gulags. And like that is my playbook. It's open out there for the world. That's how I'm thinking about things. But we need to accelerate. Time is of the essence. It's not an emergency, but sooner would be better.
I love it. Bitcoin's winning. We just need to win a little bit harder.
Let's win faster.
I love it, man. Thank you for doing this.
Thanks for having me.
Should we go and drink some beers?
Thanks for coming back to Nashville.
Of course, man. I love it here.
Cheers.
Cheers.